Hi everyone, in the previous video we implemented the turn-based system so that we can play a game versus the black player. But the problem is we want to display the captured pieces on the board. For example, when I capture this pawn, I want to see that pawn here inside another part so that I can keep track of the pieces that I captured, and vice versa here for the white pieces. So in order to display those pieces, we have to create another part. Actually, we have to create two parts because we are going to display one part on each side. But the parts will be almost identical. So I'm going to create a base class for them called graveyard part and extend this class. So let me go ahead and create those in the beginning. So there will be a white graveyard part and a black graveyard part. Alright, so these two will extend graveyard parts. And the only difference of those parts from each other is their side. So obviously this will be white side and wait a second. Alright, this will be black and this will be white. So why don't we go ahead and set those in the constructor. The public white graveyard part. The only thing I have to do is set the side to white. So side white. So of course I'm going to have to create a side field in the graveyard part, but let me do that after moving this to the black graveyard part as well. Public black. Alright, so let's create our side field here. Private side, or it should be protected because unless it's protected, the subclasses cannot access it. Side. Alright. So as I told you, this is the only thing we have to do inside the black and white graveyard parts, because all the other functionalities will be the same. So we are going to implement it inside this base class. So let me copy and paste some code from the chessboard part, because it's going to be a it's going to have a post construct and focus method, as all the part classes do. And let me delete the contents. And delete that. So I'm going to only need a single grid data. So what will we have? What widgets will we have inside this part? So there will be labels, as there are inside the chessboard part. So private label cap or dead pieces, let's call them that. So the purpose of this part is to display the captured pieces. And how many pieces do we have? Potentially we will have 16 pieces, because there are 16 pieces on each side initially. So inside the constructor, let's create allocate memory for this array. So public graveyard part dead pieces is equal to new label no board length times 2. So this is 8, and we will have a total of 16 labels for each graveyard part. And then let's create widgets for those label widgets inside the post-construct method. So for p for piece 0 from p less than board length times 2. And here we are going to assign widgets to the array elements. New label parent and SWT none. And we have to set the layout data as well. Set layout data with the grid data. And that's it for now. And inside the set focus method, we have to access the army object. So let me open up the army class. So as you see here, we keep track of the alive and dead pieces. So we will need this method so that we can access the list of dead pieces to render. So how can we access the army? Here's how we're going to do that. If you remember, we exposed our chess room from the chessboard part, get chess room, and from the board we can get the army. So the side will be assigned in the subclass, so we are assuming that this is properly set at this moment. And inside a for loop, let me copy this, but instead 16 times we're going to iterate army get dead pieces size. So for the number of captured pieces, we're going to display or set the images of the captured pieces inside the set focus method. So let me copy that. Set image and army get dead pieces, get p and get icon. So that's it. That was fairly easy, I think. And then we have to update our application e4xmi file. If you remember, in the beginning of our series, we created a single part to display our chessboard. So there's only one part here. We are going to add 2 more parts, one before the chessboard and one after, so that they will align horizontally. So by the way, in order to align the parts horizontally, we need to change this orientation from vertical to horizontal, and we're going to add 2 part stacks like that, and let's make sure the chessboard is in the middle. So name that graveyard white, and let's name that graveyard black. And as in this part stack, we're going to add parts inside those, and let's properly name them as well. White, and the label, so let's forget about the label for now. Graveyard black. So you don't have to rename those, but in a larger application, these IDs are usually used by the application. So I don't think that we're going to use them, but it's a habit. Alright, so now we have to just link these parts to our implementation classes. So white for this one and black for this one. I'm thinking if I forgot something. Let's try to run our program. I think a lot of things will crash, but alright, the first thing is, as you see, we have to enlarge this window. So from the trimmed window here, let's make that 800 and run once again. So I forgot to mention, I was thinking about, so here we have 8 rows and 8 columns. So the number of columns determine the width of the part. So inside this main part, chessboard part, we have 8 columns of squares. But for making this as compact as possible, we can still have 8 rows, but 2 columns in each row, so that these two can be more narrow. So from the application E4XMI file here, you can set the relative dimensions of those parts that are inside the same part container. So we are going to do this like that. So for example, let me assign that 8, and since there are 8 columns inside the main part, and there will be 2 columns inside the graveyard parts. So by setting the container data like this, the application will resize the parts so that this is wider and these are narrower. So let's try that. Alright, as you see, it looks much neater now. And there's one thing to do, one more thing to do about that as well, and that's, as you see, we are setting the layout here. This grid layout takes in 2 arguments: number of columns. The first one is the number of columns. We need to change this as well. So it has to be 2 because we are designing our parts to consist of 2 columns. Our chessboard part here had 9 columns, counting the row numbers as well. So let's run this again. So we won't see any changes because we didn't. So let's try it out actually. For example, let me capture this. So it didn't show up anything. So the reason may be that, alright, displaying the images can be tricky sometimes. Let's go ahead and make sure that our graveyard part has a grid data with sufficient dimensions. So grid data with hint is equal to 50, because this is the number of pixels of our icon images. So they are square shaped, so the heights are 50 pixels as well. This might be the thing causing the problem earlier, so let's try it again. So it didn't show up this time. Alright, so what can we do? So let's add part refresher. Let's add our parts to our part refresher. Maybe this will help. And graveyard part. So white part and black graveyard part. Actually, and let's copy that. Set white graveyard parts. And do the same for the black graveyard. This might not be the thing causing the problem, but I remembered it, so why not change, set this now. So black graveyard parts. And also inside this set focus refresh method, we have to refresh our new parts. And also make sure that we are calling this refresh method inside. Oh, we actually forgot to set our parts inside the constructor. So part refresher set black graveyard part, this, and the same for the white graveyard part. And also make sure that we are calling the refresh method after the post construct method, in the end of the post construct method. Refresh. So it's worth trying again. So we got a null pointer exception at refresh. So this object might be null. So the case may be that these two are registered and the refresh method is called here before this gets registered. So we can solve this by performing a null check. So if chessboard part is equal to null, or the white graveyard part is equal to null, or the black graveyard part is equal to null, continue or return. That should take care of the null pointer exception, I think. Alright, so no exceptions yet. Let's capture a piece again. Oh, here. It's now displaying our captured piece. So I'm going to go ahead and slightly modify the window size, make it a little bit smaller. So let's give it a try. Okay, just a little bit more. It doesn't look very symmetrical to me. Alright, so you can adjust it however you want. It looks fine at the moment, I think. So anyway, let's try and make the black player capture one of our pieces by chance, so that we know his side is working or our side is working fine as well. So let me set up for him. Please capture my pieces. Alright, so he captured my queen and it's displaying. So let's capture a lot of pieces and see the two column layout. So this should be added here, not in the same row. Alright, so as you see, it seems to work as intended. And checkmate, I think. So anyway, I think this video's issue is solved here. I'm thinking if I forgot anything. So if I forgot actually anything, I'll fix that in the next video. So this has been already very long. So see you in the next video, and